A proposed redevelopment of the old ITV London Studios on the South Bank has been met with opposition from locals. One organisation leading the charge is Coin Street Community Builders. We sent Riverside reporter Louis Harries to speak to David Hopkins, Director of Community at Coin Street, to find out why they are against the current plans and to see how they could affect Londoners.
So, David, for people who haven't seen this issue, can you summarise in a nutshell what it is?
Absolutely. There's a big threat to the South Bank. There is going to be Lambeth Planning Committee next Tuesday, an application for a big hulking building to go up on the Riverside just by the South Bank. We're worried that it's going to block huge amounts of daylight out for people strolling down the river, using the park for the residents who live just behind the development. And so we're opposing that. We're asking Lambeth Council to reject that, to send it back to the drawing board and come up with something that's more in proportion to its surroundings.
So is there any way that the developers could modify their plans to make it more acceptable to Coin Street, or is it a case of just rewriting the whole thing? And,
I should say it's not just Coin Street here. So the whole community is united in opposition to this scheme. We've got a petition that's online that's amassed 1,300 signatures. We have objections from a whole host of local organisations. We're working on this with Waterloo Community Development Group. The National Theatre have objected. They have said they think this will harm the National Theatre, will harm the South Bank. Our local MP, Florence Eshalomi, has objected. She thinks that the harms this development will cause are completely out of proportion with any benefits. So there is universal opposition to this scheme. Our residents are really worried. I was with a resident yesterday in her flat. Her windows face this and she's set to lose 65% of her daylight. And you can imagine if you were sat in your living room looking out the window on a day like today, the prospect of losing up to 60% of your daylight coming through, what that would mean to your mental health and your quality of life. So universal opposition. You asked, what could be done to make this development more acceptable? I think all of us in the local community, we're not saying there shouldn't be development. We welcome the development of that site. We loved that site when it was busy and bustling and vibrant when ITV were on site. We want to go back to that. It is just that the current design is so big, bulky, outside. It's out of proportion. So just to slim the site down, reduce the width of the site would go a huge way towards making our new neighbours that we can welcome rather than that will threaten the quality of life of those living next door.
So there's clearly an objection to the physical nature of the plans. Do you also object to, so you mentioned Florence Eshalomi, MP for Vauxhall, waded in and said an objection from her point of view was the plan to only dedicate 10% of the floor space to affordable office space. Is that something else you'd like to see? Would that ingratiate it more to the local community if that was increased?
So there is a question mark about the extent of office space within this development. As Florence has pointed out, the proportion of affordable office space, the lack of housing. So there were some proposals that were passed a few years ago that have been put to one side that had housing within them. So ultimately, we're looking for a mixed development that fits in with the neighbours and fits in with the neighbourhood and that doesn't block out the daylight coming through for all of the neighbours and frankly ruin the quality of life for those who've been here for decades and decades.
So do you have any idea of what you would like to see in its place?
I think there's an opportunity. So this goes to Planning Committee next Tuesday evening. Lambeth Council officers have recommended it for approval, but ultimately it's up to Lambeth councillors to look at the balance between the harms and the benefits and make a decision on behalf of the people of the Borough of Lambeth. So there's an opportunity for those councillors to ask the developers to think again, to reject the application. That's what we're calling on Lambeth Planning Committee to do. That's what we're calling on them to do. The National Theatre, our ward councillors have asked colleagues to reject the application. The National Theatre, Historic England, the 20th Century Society, I could go on. There's a whole host of organisations that have asked the planning committee to send this back to the drawing board and reject it on Tuesday night. So that's our simple request to those colleagues who sit on the planning committee.
And what do you say to people who might argue this new development of high-end offices could bring a mass injection of investment into the local economy?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to say, actually, Coin Street, as well as being a community organisation, we're a massive part of that local economy. So we have restaurants, pubs, shops, all on our estate. And we rely on that income, actually, to fund our community activities. So our business model is we make money commercially and then reinvest it in the community, running youth centre, children's centre, working with senior citizens. So, we've got a vested interest in the area being vibrant and having people, exactly as you say, working locally, coming out, having a bite to eat at lunchtime in one of our restaurants or pubs, popping in to grab a present for someone at one of the artist maker studios and the shops that we've got at the Oxo Gallery. So more than anyone, we're really invested in this being a very vibrant part of the South Bank, but not at the expense of ordinary Londoners living in the shadow of this building, who are the people that keep our capital running. So the people that live in the homes that are being overshadowed by this building are taxi drivers, theatre workers, nursery staff, people who work at the hospitals up the road, really, really important people to London. And we don't think any benefits that we might get from more people coming into the pubs, restaurants and shops is a price worth paying for completely blighting the quality of life of those families who live in the shadow of this building.
And finally, for listeners who may now be interested or perhaps even inflamed by this issue, how do you suggest they get involved?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to everyone listening, if you love a stroll down the South Bank on a day like today where it's absolutely gorgeous, please go and have a look at our website. So we're at www.coinstreet.org. If you follow the link on the front page, it will take you to a petition that's up that you can sign. Already we've had 1,300 people sign that. That sends a very clear message to decision makers on Tuesday night. So if you'd like to support the residents and the organisations like us who are trying to preserve the South Bank as a beautiful place to go, a beautiful place to live, please visit the website www.coinstreet.org, follow the link to the change.org petition, sign up please, and help us get the right decision on this for every Londoner who loves the South Bank.
David Hopkins, many thanks for your time.
Thanks very much.